The Italian Prime Minister, Vittorio Orlando, he is hailed by the people as the premier of victory. They think this guy is just brilliant, you know? To be honest, I don't know much about his record, but the Italians didn't win World War I. I mean, it wasn't on them. They contributed. I don't mean to downplay their contributions, but they weren't the guys that smashed the winning blow there. So we know the big four meet in Paris. You got Vittorio, and then you got Wilson, you got Clemenceau, you got Lloyd George. When the Italians get to Paris, they can't agree amongst themselves on a lot of issues and a lot of things than what they want. So they're kind of divided and weak going into it. They're very weak going into it. The Italians, however, are extremely excited because guess what? This conference is going to confirm all this new stuff they're going to get. They're going to get Trentino. They're going to get the Dalmatian coast in Istria, the eastern coast of Dalmatia. They're going to get all these islands. They're so excited. They won the war, and now they paid in blood. They're going to get the spoils of victory here. Except there's one problem, and his name is Woodrow Wilson. And as we know, Wilson, the Germans agreed to end the war on the basis of Wilson's 14 points. Wilson's 14 points contradict every territorial gain they're going to get. Because Wilson was talking about self-determination for peoples. Well, so the people in Dalmatia, they're just going to be swapped out from one empire to another, you know? So Wilson, advocating this, says these we can't create bigger national empires. We need to get rid of national empires where they exist as much as we can. So it stifles Italy's imperial ambitions. Wilson, and being backed up by Clemenceau and Lloyd George, they're screwed. You know, they feel screwed. They had, in good faith, in 1915, entered an agreement with Britain and France, the Treaty of London, which told them they were going to get very specific territorial gains as a result of this war. And now, at the conference, they are told, well, no, we've changed our minds, and this and this and this. And so the Italians, as you can imagine, feel cheated. We were cheated. Sounds familiar, right? Now here's the thing. Italy was on the winning side of the war. But because of the blood that was spilled, the damage to its economy, and the fact that it didn't get what it was supposed to get, even though they won the war, they felt like they lost the war. And they're very resentful. So even though they're winners, they feel like they're losers. This was Italy before the war. This is Italy after. So you can see it does get a little bit of what it hoped for. Well, I mean, this is the Trentino. That was what was really, that was the thing that was bugging them. So they got that. So they did gain something, but not enough. Now, most battles that Italy had fought during the war, they'd been fought on Italian soil, right? They didn't really advance much into Austria at all. And so those land territories had largely been devastated. Where they had come through, they'd been devastated. And so what territories that Italy did get actually weren't much better off because Austria had to increasingly tie its own economy to Germany. I mean, really, Austria-Hungary was on life support pretty much the last couple of years of the war. Germany was just pumping money and economic aid. So the lands that it gets are not particularly wealthy. They're not particularly contributing to their economy. So many writers and intellectuals, they're thinking, how do we get our economy going again? This war has smashed us. We didn't get what we were promised, which was going to get our economy up and running. What do we do? What do we do to economically rejuvenate ourselves again? And as you can imagine, you've got socialists, and the radical socialists are saying, look what they're doing in Russia. That's what we do here. We have a revolution, get rid of our king, get rid of the nobles, get rid of the church, nationalize everything, government runs everything, everybody's happy. What could possibly go wrong? But more and more intellectuals here, you still have enough people that have a stake in society that they don't want to do that. So, more and more of these intellectuals that are trying to find this new economic system, they begin to call themselves fascist. I don't want to talk about him yet. They begin to call themselves well, I guess we can go to him. They begin to call themselves fascists. They begin to call themselves fascists. And this is one of these fascists here, Gabriele D'Annunzio, and I believe that's him on the cane. D'Annunzio took pride that he'd written all these books, and he kind of took pride that most of them have been banned by the church. Because a lot of them were overtly sexual and deemed pornography of a sort, and perversions and whatnot. So the church didn't like him. At one point, he even calls himself a Satanist, and I think he wasn't really. I think he just liked to shock people. But he, who knows? Maybe he was. He stated that incest was a good thing. Incest was a good thing. And he says, talk of economics puts me to sleep. Talk of economics puts me to sleep. But he was a strong nationalist figure on the Italian right. He's, of course, the counter to the socialists. He's saying, Italy, our country. We fought for it, we bled for it, we're going to protect it. Italy. Got a lot of problems, we got to fix it. But Italy, right? He's a strong nationalist, so doesn't like socialists in that. And their ilk. He has confidence, bombast, he struts around, tells people what he thinks, unapologetically. And many Italians are really turned on by the guy. And they think, this is a guy that maybe he's got what it takes. Maybe he's a good leader for this country. And he said, you know what? Italy is a great country. We need to be a great power, not just in name, but in fact. We need to make Italy great again. To borrow a phrase, right? And I don't mean to, and it's very vulgar to compare modern political figures to historical figures, particularly very violent ones, and I don't mean to make that, and I don't do it lightly. It just came out that way. Please be aware of that. Please be aware of that. Now, at the Paris Peace Conference, one of the things that was done is in Croatia, there is a town called Fiume. Fiume had been ruled by the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and this is one of the territories that had been promised to Italy under the Treaty of London. Well, there was kind of some anarchy going on in there. So a very small Allied force made up of Allied soldiers was sent there to maintain order. Because the Austrian-Hungarian government was gone, everything was just going crazy. So a small force is sent there to maintain order. D'Annunzio is not happy. Why are they going there? This is an Italian city. We signed a treaty in 1915. It's ours. I mean, he's belligerent, right? He's saying it's ours. So, in September of 1919, he takes a force of 2,600 of his Italian followers, and they actually attack the Allied force. Now, this is not government sanctioned. This is kind of a private enterprise here. These guys go in, they attack the Allied force. The Allied force retreats rather than fight them because they don't have orders to fight, so they leave. He then declares Fiume. He then declares that he is annexing Fiume for the Kingdom of Italy. The government, however, the Italian government, It doesn't want to start a war with Britain and France. It denounces D'Annunzio. It denounces him. It denounces this expedition. So D'Annunzio says, fine, if you won't take this for Italy, then I am declaring it an independent city-state with me as its ruler. So he sets himself up as the ruler of the city-state. So essentially he's dictator. The constitution that they write for Fiume is based on this principle, I'll explain shortly, called corporatism, which essentially will ultimately kind of be a synonym for fascism. Okay? Will ultimately kind of be a... And this whole affair here, the Impresa di Fiume. Now, Italy signs a treaty in... I wish I had a slide for that. Italy signs a treaty in 1920, and this treaty is the Treaty of Rapallo. Treaty of Rapallo, 1920. And it is this treaty which ultimately gives this up here, this part of Istria, to Italy. It also, this treaty that Italy signs also recognizes Fiume's independence. It recognizes D'Annunzio's government. However, there soon starts to be a lot of tension. Wait a second. Some people are saying, well, the government just said that they recognize Fiume's independence, but then some factions of the government said, now wait a second. D'Annunzio specifically said he had declared it for Italy before, and then he changed, and then we said we rejected it, and then he changed his mind. No. It should be Italy now, because now we're adjacent to it with that territorial gain. We want Fiume back. And there was a big kind of debate in the government, and finally the government decides, yeah, we want it back. We want Fiume to be part of Italy. So they're not going to go to war over it. Italy is not prepared to go to war over it, but they're kind of putting pressure on it. So D'Annunzio is feeling pressure, and he begins to be a little belligerent. He starts conducting raids into Italian territory, into farms, into towns, into islands. He's like kind of causing problems. A lot of it was his economy was not very good, so essentially stealing stuff to make his economy work. Finally, the Italians say, well, we can't let him just start raiding our lands with impunity. So the Italian army sends an expeditionary force into Fiume. It deposes D'Annunzio around Christmas of 1920. Around Christmas of 1920, he is deposed. And about 53 of his followers are killed in the clash. And he's not arrested, and he's allowed to retire in northern Italy. He's probably warned, keep your nose out of politics, but he's allowed to go to northern Italy. He continues to write, but he's kind of a marginal figure in Italian politics. He dies in 1938, kind of an obscure figure. A lot of people still like him quite a bit. But this is important, as we're going to see, because the Fiume experiment is going to have tremendous implications on the development of fascism here in Italy. So now